Hi, I'm Sharon Wren,
And I'm Linda Cook.
and this is QC Crime Watch. This week we'll be taking a look at some of the crimes that have happened in the Quad Cities, and we'll check in on some of the court cases we're following. And before we forget, neither one of us have any legal training. We cannot and will not give you any legal advice.
I always hate to say that every week. And a couple of people have said to me over the last few months, why do you do that? Well, for two reasons. First, there's the legal reason that we really aren't equipped, right, to do anything remotely like recommendations of
Right.
attorneys. But the other thing is there's a conflict of interest. Sometime down the road, we may need to interview an attorney, particular attorney. So we really have to be careful of those things. And I think most podcasters are the same as we are in that respect.
You'll see this in a TV show every time they come back from a commercial break on the same episode, it has the little ratings at the top, just in case you forgot that the crime show you were watching is rated PG-13.
Right.
Like you're gonna forget, but it just reminds you every time, so that's one reason we do it.
I found Saturday, so about a few days ago, I'll say. Um, and this is a Davenport man who was arrested after he agreed to meet a detective posing as a 15-year-old girl. Now, how would that happen? Well, where else but online, which is what you and I are today. And I thought this would be appropriate for this podcast. 25-year-old Davenport man now faces felony charges because he agreed to meet a Louisa County detective. If you think about it, space doesn't matter. This detective could have been anywhere in the world, right? Louisa County detective posing online as a girl. This is according to Scott County arrest affidavits. Noah Garcia faces charges of sexual exploitation of a minor caused to engage in act, grooming and enticing a minor under 16 sexual purpose. And that's according to Scott County Court and Scott County Jail records. Scott County arrest affidavits say that on or about April 30th, Mr. Garcia began to communicate online with this detective posing as a 15-year-old girl. Now, this may seem familiar to you, and it does to me. I'm a longtime fan of Mr. Hansen, who's involved in predator catching. And he's known all over the world for this, and actually has a new series called, he's got a podcast on True Blue. He's got a series with more predators. So Chris Hansen has done this for many, many years and
Right.
honestly made quite a journalistic living out of catching perpetrators, suspects like this. So this is very like what he has done for many years. Now, there's a little twist to this one.
Okay.
The undercover detective repeatedly and in several different ways told this defendant, I am only 15.
Oh, dear.
Even if you don't act on this, you are still communicating with what you know to be a minor. So, about the first instance occurred about 4 minutes after the initial contact. At one point in the conversation, according to court records, Garcia mentioned that the girl was underage. That displays knowledge. So that's right there in the chats online, and that's the evidence that's being used. But there's more.
Wait, there's more.
Affidavits affidavits show Garcia suggested that the girl meet him somewhere. And the place they picked was in Davenport. Allegedly, specific sex acts were discussed. And at 4:05 p.m. Friday, May 9th, Mr. Garcia entered North Park Mall in Davenport.
Okay.
He was immediately, and I will just read this as a quote from the affidavits, seized upon entrance into the mall and found to have a cellular phone and a pink lollipop on his person. I know, I'll get to that. A search warrant was executed on Garcia's vehicle, and that's where officers found a box of condoms and a pair of loose underwear. The undercover detective and Garcia had arranged for this defendant to bring condoms, the lollipop, and the loose underwear, a souvenir, to the meeting, according to court records. According to Scott County Court affidavits, Garcia is on pretrial release already for a charge of lascivious conduct with a minor. So that is pending. He, the last I heard, was being held on a $250,000 cash only bond in Scott County Jail. He has a preliminary hearing May 20th, and I can tell our listeners and our Quad Cities news fans that Sharon and I will be watching this case very closely. I have one personal story to tell that's attached to this. Many years ago, when I taught criminal justice classes at Kaplan, she was an older student. I think at the time she was in her late 30s, and she had been married and had a daughter. And I taught I'll say it was a technology class. It was about scams and what can happen online, and it was kind of in the early days of this stuff. So she wouldn't care if I used her first name. Her name is Shelly, and Shelly said, "You can use a picture of my daughter to put up a fake account because she's grown up now." And I said, "Okay." So there were probably 25 of us in the class, and we went to a computer lab and put up a fake. I believe this is back when there was MySpace. This is a long time ago.
Wait,
We put
back
up
in the
this
last
fake,
century?
yeah, right, right. So we put up this fake girl's picture and gave her a name and said, "Hey, anybody want to talk?" We couldn't keep track of the people who wanted to message, meet, and make suggestions to this girl. And all of us, including myself, were absolutely astounded at the messages and the people who poured in just from this few minutes of work we did. So that was probably 15, 17 years ago. Now look at all the different social media platforms. Look at all the ways we can connect. You and I are doing it right now, Sharon. I mean, at that time, who would have thought that we could do this?
Right.
So I just want to say, as an educator and a longtime crime reporter, please know who your children are talking to, because they may not. It's okay to ask questions.
Right.
Sorry,
Ugh.
Sharon, I really set you up for something, didn't I?
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of more parents' worst nightmares, a Davenport man is in the Scott County Jail on $150,000 cash only bond after police say he sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl. Earlier in the day of the incident, the defendant, who's been identified as Kiwan Davis, age 22, approached the victim in a Davenport park and told her, and this is a quote from the affidavits, "If you don't listen to my commands, I will shoot you." Obviously, this poor girl was in fear for her life, as most of us would be. Uh, Mr. Davis took the girl to a nearby house. He did not live there. He did not have any right to be there. The occupants were not home.
Oh,
He took her to an enclosed porch and sexually assaulted her. The
Sharon, this may not be in the affidavit, so I'm just gonna ask,
right.
how did this end? How did this interlude end? Did she run from him? Did he let her
Yes.
go?
No, she ran after the assault and she went home. She told somebody who believed her. They took her to the hospital that did d- the sexual assault kit from her. And honestly, and when we have to give a shout out to the police here, they took the statement about 6 o'clock in the evening. They made the arrest at 1 o'clock the next morning. So that was, we talk about how things don't move very fast. Sometimes they move really fast.
Well, look at who all was involved. There's a person we haven't named, obviously the victim,
Right,
but there's also that person who believed her.
right,
And that's, everything worked after this dreadful incident, everything worked in favor of coming to a conclusion, finding a suspect, and getting this on the road to justice, I'll say.
Right. And it's especially scary because there wasn't anything that she could have done to prevent this. I mean, she didn't do anything wrong. It was broad daylight. She's, not a toddler. And I mean, 14-year-olds should be able to go to the park in broad daylight
It's
without
just
having to worry about any kind of assault.
it's terrifying
Yeah,
what is lurking out there, and I don't think people should be afraid,
right.
but they should certainly be aware. Had I been 14 and someone had approached me in the park and said that, I would have gone with them. I would have been terrified.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's yeah, terrible things about society.
Goodness.
Yes. Well, eh, continuing our thread of not happy stories, a man from East Moline is in the Rock Island County Jail after being held on no bond after police arrested him on 18 counts of child pornography.
Oh dear.
Yes, the criminal complaint said the defendant, who's been identified as Jonathan Roberson, age 18, possessed videos and photos, and this is a quote, of a child whom the defendant knew or reasonably should have known to be under 13 years of age in various sexual situations on about January 9th of this year. I read the criminal complaint and yeah, uh, there's no way to mention it tastefully. He was arrested and charged with 5 counts of child pornography, possession of a moving depiction, 10 counts of possession of child pornography, victim under 13, and 3 counts of possession of child pornography, film/photos. And he has a preliminary hearing next week.
And we'll be keeping track of that case as
Yeah.
well.
Yes. I'm not sure, and I don't know if you know this. What is the difference between moving depiction and film? They sound
I'm
like
not sure.
okay.
I'm not sure. I don't know, because to
Okay.
me, they sound the same. That's something we should look. I'll tell you what, let's look it up. And next week we can tell people, because I don't know, you don't know.
No, they
Let's
sound the
find out.
same. Okay, well,
Let's find
so
out.
tune in next week. Little teaser for you.
Yep, yep.
And we have an update on the double homicide that we talked about in our last episode.
That involved an arson.
Yes,
Yes.
it's not a double homicide anymore. The cases have been split.
A motion to
Literally.
sever has been
Nope.
accepted.
That's what it is called, a motion to sever in the case of Adriana Blake and Devin Brait. Paperwork was filed in both cases on May 9th to ask for the cases to be severed. Um, what is interesting, trying to read my notes here, Brait has asked for a jury trial, but Blake has asked for a bench trial.
For a bench trial.
So it's a good thing they split because I don't know how you would do that otherwise.
And just to make sure people understand what that means, in a jury trial, the jurors make the decision, they find the defendant guilty, innocent, whatever.
Right.
And then in a bench trial, it's the judge, just a judge, that looks at all the evidence, hears victim testimony or witness testimony, and then the judge makes the decision in a bench trial.
And there's a lot of evidence in this case. I think we could say hundreds of
Hundreds. I saw more exhibits had been filed in the last day or two. I checked yesterday. So there's a lot of photos, a lot of grim evidence, and then a lot of people that are going to be interviewed. So we'll try to keep track of all of this that goes on um, day by day.
right. And this happened in February of 2024, so this is another one of those cases where it's going to take a while to get through it.
That's right. Well, what happened, there was a fire on Division Street at a residence on Division Street. And when emergency responders went in, they found two people who were deceased, but they had been shot. So it was apparently made to look like an arson. So there's a lot more to this, but as we as we continue with the official documentation, as we continue to listen in court, which you have. You
Right.
were in court how many days? Just a few days ago, right?
Right.
And so we'll fill you in on details as we learn them.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for QC Crime Watch this week.
And thank you all, and stay safe out there. And I know the weather's nice and people are out tearing around, so please lock your cars
And your
when you get
houses.
out. Absolutely. Stay safe out there, folks. Thanks.